All right, so this is part two. We're going to start off with the scriptures version. Now, this personally is my favorite translation, or one of my favorites, but I will say this is probably my favorite translation. And in my opinion, probably the best overall translation that you can buy. There are some that are very close, that are comparable to it. You know, out of 100, I'll give this 100. There's some that you can find about 99%, 98. But to me, this is the benchmark. And this, to me, is the most well-rounded, scholarly translation that is on the market that I have personally seen or read. And it's done by the Institute of Scripture Research. And I'm just going to open up the table of contents. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because, again, we have a lot of books to go through that I'm sure you guys want to see. And I'm going to start off, as you can see here, you have the first 5 books, Genesis through Deuteronomy. And then above that, you have the alternate name, which are on the right name. And then on the left, you have the actual real names of the books. But above that, I want to speak very briefly on the word Torah, because Torah, there's a lot of misunderstandings or misconceptions of what it means. Commonly the first 5 books of the Bible is referred to as the Torah, or the first 5 books of Moses, or even the Pentateuch. But Torah means teachings. That's what it means in Hebrew, or instructions. And they have in parentheses, commonly called law. What they're meaning is that if you have a concordance, and this is primarily in the Tanakh or Old Testament, when you find the word law, every time that is mentioned in the Bible, when you look up that word law in the original tongue, you'll find the word Torah. Torah does not mean law. In most Bibles, you'll find the word law, and that's why they put commonly called law. But the essential essence of the word Torah means to instruct or to teach. So when people say they are not under the law in a negative context, what they're saying is that they're not under the original instructions or teachings. That's all they're saying, because you won't find the word law in the manuscripts. You will find the word Torah. And every time you find the word law, you'll find the word Torah. And so, they translate law for Torah, which is not a correct translation, because it's very misleading and does not convey the actual meaning. So that's one of the reasons why it's very important when you read the Bible, because like I said before, even though it's redundant and it's seemed obvious, but in a way it's not, that the Bible is not written in English, and the English words do not convey the Hebrew words sometimes. Okay, so but just wanted to point that out, which is very, very important to understand, because many people think Torah is this, Torah is that. They don't know what the word Torah is, and Torah is just means instructions or to teach. It is not any other books. It's, so some people think there's some lost book somewhere called Torah. No, it just means instruction or to teach, and sometimes referred to as the first 5 books of Moses. But those who understand Torah understand the whole scriptures is considered to be Torah, not just limited to Bereshit to Devarim. All right, so they restore the original names, which may not be a big deal for some, but in Hebrew, all names have a meaning. In biblical Hebrew, all names have a meaning. Every name you see here has a meaning. In English, see, all these words have been anglicized and changed, and they don't have a meaning. Okay? And so to me, it's very, very important, because when you change somebody's name, and it has a meaning in their name, you dilute it. And so it stays true to the actual text. So essentially, to read the Bible, you want to read it in the most purest form as possible. Obviously, the books were written thousands of years ago. And so you want to read it in the purest way. You don't want to read it with a Western understanding. In my opinion, you want to read it with the understanding of the actual writer, because then it forces you now to go and to think or read in that context versus thinking, 2018, the way things are. No, it was totally different. So you want to, essentially go back in time to their understanding. All right, I'm just going to point out something very quickly, because I spent about 5 minutes on it already, and we have a lot of books to go through. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on the scriptures version. But I just want to point out some things that you guys may like. And we're in the book of Matthew here. Here's Matthew's original name or real name. And we're going to start with verse 21. And I'm just going to read 21 to 23. And she shall give birth. And this is Matthew 1, verse 21. And she shall give birth to a son, and you shall call his name. And here you find the real name or the original name for Jesus, before it has been changed and transliterated over time and time and time. It's Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, for he shall save his people from their sins. So they restore his original or his real name. And verse 22, and all this came to be in order to fill what is spoken. And then you find the sacred name for God, Yod He Wah He, through the prophet saying, and Alma. Now, Alma, I'm glad that they did not translate this word, but transliterate it. And if you're not, translation and transliteration is very, very important. When you read the Bible, you'll find a lot of words that are translated, and you'll find a lot of words that are transliterated. And it's very important to understand and know the difference. In most cases, I believe most words should be transliterated versus versus translated. And Alma is the transliterated word of the Hebrew word Alma. And so transliteration is all it is just you're taking the act, in this case, the Hebrew word that is used in Isaiah 7:14 is Alma, not virgin, but Alma. And so, which means young woman, or it can mean virgin. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Alma, it forces you now to look up the definition of the word Alma versus the translators putting their definition or somewhat maybe a bias into the text, which is done all the time. And so that's why, again, it's very important to, when you read the Bible, always use the concordance and find out what does that word mean in the language from which it is being translated from, because not all the time you'll find that translators are biased. Okay, so this is kind of a few things that point out that is just great scholarly work. It's fair, I should say. And it says that she shall conceive and give birth to a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated, which means El with us, or the power, or in English we will refer to the power as God. All right. So again, the scriptures version. Next, we're going to go to, and we'll move along quickly, the Dead Sea Scrolls Bible. It's the oldest known Bible translated for the first time into English. I'm just reading the cover. It says more than 1,000 years older than any previously discovered biblical manuscript, with material never before published or translated, include hundreds of new and different readings of lost Psalms. Here's a quote from Christianity Today: "The nearest thing to having the Bible Jesus read." This is the Dead Sea Scrolls Bible, a must-have book if you appreciate scholarship and manuscripts. All right. Here we have the, this is not a very popular book. This is the Aramaic English New Testament. Now, let me just, before I even go and open the book, the one thing that always, kind of puzzled me is that in the region of where Yeshua, Jesus, did, is from, that whole region of Palestine, or you refer to as Palestine, the dominant language of that time was Aramaic. Just like in America, the dominant language is English, and pretty much English is the dominant language of the world right now, even though in other countries speak, their native language, but English is the most dominant language around the world. What intrigued me is that the New Testament, all the manuscripts are in Greek, and which didn't make any sense to me. Like, logically speaking, if that was his native tongue, and that's where the people's native tongue, then why are they all in Greek? Now, I'm going to read to you what is on the back, which will help you understand and make a lot more sense now. It says, why the Aramaic English New Testament so important for today? The Aramaic language reveals the original beauty of the New Testament and provides a deeper understanding of Yeshua's message. The belief of Christianity today are based on Greek and Latin texts, neither of which were the primary languages of the regions. Okay, hundreds of theological and prophetic insights within the original Aramaic are not available in any other translations. Study for yourself how conflicts in the Greek New Testament translations can be traced back to the original Aramaic. Paul the Apostle embedded hidden signatures within his original writings to protect the authenticity of his letter. The Aramaic English New Testament features Paul in his original Semitic mindset without the later paganization. And so this book here is directly from the Aramaic script and translated into English without going through the Greek, which many believe that the original manuscripts were originally in Aramaic or Hebrew. And so this is the original Aramaic directly into English. All right. Wow. So again, good book. If you love scholarly work, if you love manuscripts, you can appreciate the Aramaic New Testament. Next, we're going to start with the Chumash Interlinear Bible. Okay, now this is an interlinear Bible, and so, but it doesn't read like an interlinear Bible. And we're going to start and open up the beginning of the book. Here, obviously this is Genesis. Always going to be Genesis at the beginning. And look here, you have the arrows. So the arrows tell you how to read it. They did a really great, fine job with this book. But what I love about this is done by Art Scroll, is that you have great commentary. Now, commentary, any commentary, remember, it's just a human being's opinion and should be never taken as scripture. Okay? All right, it's just somebody's opinion. But the good thing about this commentary is that you have some commentary done by Rashi, and if those who know Rashi goes back over nearly 1,000 years. So anytime you can get commentary that old, I'll put it above most commentary that is modern today. So you have a lot of great commentary here in the Chumash Interlinear Bible. All right, some great stuff in here. All right, there's numbers, Bamidbar in Hebrew. See, and the arrows just makes it flows very, very well. Flows very, very well. All right, the Chumash. Next, we're going to have something a little bit different. This is not a translation, but this is a must-have book, but I would say more advanced, and you're going to know why I say that in a second. This is definitely not a book you're going to find on TBN or pretty much any Christian bookstore, but this is a very important book that I think if you love ancient manuscripts, love textual variances, this is a must-have book. Now, if you're not familiar with the Samaritans, they go back from the times of the Assyrian captivity. The New Testament mentions the Samaritans a couple of times, but essentially the Samaritans claim that their scroll their Pentateuch or their Torah was given from Abisha, and they refer to it as Abisha scroll. Now, if that name sounds familiar, Abisha, I believe if you read First Chronicles chapter 6, verse 50, is either 50 or 35, but it's First Chronicles 6, verse 50. You will find the genealogy of Aaron, which is the grandson or the great-grandson of Aaron. So their claim is that Abisha gave them their scroll, which essentially will make their scroll over 3,000 plus years old, will essentially be probably the oldest scroll. But there are scholars who refute it and say that it's much younger, really around 1500 mark or something, around there. But again, but it's not the Masoretic text, which is very important. And the Masoretic text, or the sometimes referred to as the Hebrew text, or here is referred to as the Jewish text, is the all English Bibles. 90%, if not, I can't say all, maybe 95% of all English Bibles, the Old Testament is based off the Masoretic Hebrew text, is their basis to use of the translation. So even if you're not familiar with it, in that context, that's what essentially are you reading. When you read Genesis through Malachi, you're reading the Masoretic text, and so it's like a rival version of the Masoretic text. They're saying that theirs is the original, and which is very interesting. Okay, the only negative thing about this book here is that the only English that you will see is on the cover and in the preface here, as you can see here. That's about it. Just the introduction, and then the actual script is all in Hebrew. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. I don't know if there's a English version out there, but it's all in Hebrew. So on the right side you have the traditional Masoretic text, and then you have the Samaritan text. And what they did, any variances, they put it in bold letters so you could compare. Again, this is great work. Again, if you love manuscripts, you're gonna love this book. And again, anytime you have access to these type of ancient documents that go back that far, it only can enhance your understanding and learning. All right. So the Samaritan Jewish version compared, the Torah, great fine book. I forgot how much I paid for it, but I got it. Everything, all these books here I pretty much bought on Amazon.com. All right. Next, we're gonna go with the GPS Hebrew Tanakh, and I'm gonna pause right there, and I'm gonna make a part 3, and we're gonna start off with the GPS Tanakh. And the reason for that is that the longer these videos are, it takes forever to upload on YouTube, so I have to put them in parts. And we have some more books to get through, so we're gonna pause and we'll get to part 3, and when we return. Shalom.